Happy Thursday, everyone. My name is meteorologist Heather Kane. It's time for our daily hail forecast, sponsored as always by See-Through Group, Merlin Law Group, American Contractors Show, as well as Atlas Roofing. Thank you guys for sponsoring our videos. So let's get right into our weather headlines. We do have a chance to see some severe weather in the Northeast. It should be on the lower end of things, and it should be mostly wind, but we also have some other areas in the country that we'll be watching for both hail and wind as well. So we'll check on those. And then getting into tomorrow, the severe risk will once again shift to the northern plains. So we will talk about that. And then getting into our weekend, the northern plains will once again have a chance for severe weather, and will Minneapolis be in that particular risk? We'll talk about that as well. So here are yesterday's storm reports. We did see a good amount of activity in the eastern part of the U.S. with that cold front. We're going to zoom right on in here to the Great Lakes region first. We had a pretty good swath of wind reports from Michigan down to Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, southwest into the St. Louis area, and into southern parts of Missouri and eastern Kansas. We have some scattered hail reports as well. And then we had some more activity here in parts of the Carolinas, Georgia, and some scattered reports in Florida. And then lastly, just some isolated reports here in the Four Corners region, and a hail report out there in eastern California. So here are our current conditions across the lower 48. We still have this front here across the Great Lakes region. It's pretty much stalled out at the moment. Plenty of moisture is streaming in ahead of that system. We're going to zoom right on in here first. We have a few severe thunderstorm warnings out as well for parts of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and there's another one here in northern Pennsylvania, and one here in West Virginia. And this activity will continue to pop up and move to the east as we go throughout this afternoon and evening. And then we have plenty of moisture here from Oklahoma eastward into Arkansas. We could see a pop-up storm or two here in central Oklahoma westward into Amarillo. That should be mostly a wind threat. And then we have a few storms ongoing here in the southern parts of South Dakota, a few showers here in Nebraska. And then lastly, we're going to go to, or I guess not, let's zoom on out here for our temperatures. 91 here in New York City, 86 in Atlanta. We have a 79 degree temperature here in Fort Wayne, so a bit cooler here with some rain occurring. And you can see those temperatures starting to once again ramp up here in the central and southern plains, getting up into Montana. Cooler though once we get behind this main system. It's 76 degrees in Minneapolis. Now looking at our current dew points, you can once again see those higher numbers here. Once we get into the mid 60s, that's when you really start to notice those dew points and that stickiness in the air. And you can see we have dew points in the lower 70s from Chicago to St. Louis, Atlanta, westward to Wichita, down to Dallas. In New Orleans, you have a dew point of 73. You get behind that system and it feels a lot more comfortable. We only have a 55 degree dew point in Minneapolis. So we have plenty of heat and humidity along and ahead of that stalled out front for those storms to develop basically from now through this evening. So here is our future radar. We do have some storms ongoing across the Great Lakes region into the northeast, and as we go through this afternoon, you can see more pop-up storms are expected to form. Nothing too crazy is expected in terms of a widespread severe weather event. Any storms that do form across this area will mostly produce some scattered wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. But as we continue through this afternoon and evening, you can see some pop-up storms still present across the region. And then as we go into later on in the evening and into the overnight hours, you can see the intensity of those storms will basically just be gone. Just a few showers, maybe a storm or two possible, but they should be below severe limits. Some more activity possible here in western Kentucky and western Tennessee, and that activity will move off to the east here. So unfortunately, more heavy rain will be falling as we get to daybreak tomorrow morning in parts of Kentucky and Tennessee as well. Now getting into the here in Oklahoma as well as into Arkansas, we do have that rain falling here in parts of Missouri and southern Illinois and into western Kentucky. As we continue through the afternoon, we will be watching for a possibility of some isolated wind gusts for some storms that may try to fire up here in central Oklahoma. We're going to go forward in time here. You can see around 8 p.m. Central Time, just very isolated storm development is possible as we get through this evening and into the overnight hours. Some more pop-up storms here are possible as we go into the late evening and then into the overnight hours. Same deal, nothing too crazy is expected. But again, a gust or two up to 60 miles per hour are possible there. And then going up north to Nebraska and parts of South Dakota, we do have a few storms going on right now in southern South Dakota. And as we continue to go through it this afternoon, we are expecting a few isolated storms developing near the South Dakota-Nebraska border that could produce some severe hail, and that will continue in northern Nebraska as we go through this evening, and then they should die off as we go into the overnight hours. So a small area, and the storms should be isolated in nature there. And then lastly, let's go to Arizona, where we could see some isolated storms pop up in the Flagstaff area. This could produce up to $half size hail here, and those will start to move off to the northwest as we go through the evening and the overnight hours. We can just continue to go forward in time here as we go into the overnight hours and into tomorrow morning. We should just see a few showers here. So the afternoon hours this afternoon will be where we'll be watching for those potentially severe storms in the Flagstaff area. So let's break it all down here with the areas that we'll be watching for hail. There are two areas. They should be pretty low, like we just saw on the previous model run. Just a few storms are possible, so they're going to be very isolated. Up to $half size hail is possible here in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, and then into parts of south central South Dakota. And then another area that we'll be watching, again, will be here in Flagstaff, Arizona, where $half size hail is possible with any storms that form there. And then in terms of wind, there will be a few other areas that we will be watching. The first one is here up in the northeast with that front. So basically from New York down to Pennsylvania to Columbus, Ohio, maybe as far west as Fort Wayne, Lexington down to Paducah. Some isolated gusts up to 60 miles per hour are possible with those pop-up storms ahead of that front that has stalled out. And then an isolated gust or two are possible with those isolated storms that may pop up from Oklahoma City westward to Amarillo. And then there is a risk for some just isolated gusts up here in Montana. Billings, you can see a gust or two for severe winds there. So let's look at tomorrow morning. We do have a risk that will be shifting to the northern plains. So we're going to be waking up tomorrow. Just a few showers will be around here in the Dakotas. And as we get into tomorrow afternoon, we are expecting a few storms to fire here in northwestern Minnesota. Then we go further into the afternoon, into the evening hours. A few more storms are possibly going to fire up here in parts of South Dakota down into northwestern Nebraska. And that pattern will continue to be persistent as we get into tomorrow evening and into the overnight hours. A few more storms will be forming here and then getting into parts of western and Minnesota as we begin our morning on Saturday. And then there is a risk here in parts of Virginia and into DC as we get into tomorrow as well. A few showers will be around in the morning hours, but then as we get into the afternoon, you can see some stronger storms here are possible in this region, and that will continue to move off to the east as we get into tomorrow evening. This is at 9 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow evening. You can see some stronger storms are possible here in parts of northern West Virginia, maybe as far west as southern Ohio. And then as we continue to go through the evening into the overnight hours and into our early morning on Saturday, a lot of that activity will have been dissipating by that time. So let's break down tomorrow's hail forecast. Let's zoom on in here. There are two areas again that we will be watching. The first one is up here in the northern plains, where $50 size hail is possible from Sioux Falls to Aberdeen, northward to Fargo. Again, it looks like pretty isolated in nature again for tomorrow afternoon and evening. And then a small risk here from Richmond, Virginia to Washington, D.C., where we can again see $50 size hail with those strongest storms. Now in terms of wind, it's going to be basically those same two areas. The first one is again going to be from Sioux Falls to Aberdeen up to Fargo, where up to 60 mile per hour wind gusts are possible there. And then the same deal here from Richmond to Washington, D.C. This should be the best area where we can see up to 60 mile per hour gusts for any of those severe storms. So here are heat alerts for today. Again, for the most part, we just have heat advisories where the heat indexes will get up to around 110. So you can see the return here from Kansas down to Texas, and then we have some more up here in the northern plains as well as some in the northeast region. And then we do have an excessive heat warning way up here in far southwestern Nebraska for today through tomorrow. So keep that in mind. Make sure you drink plenty of water, like we've been saying the last few weeks, if you have to be outside, and stay indoors if it's possible. So here is our future jet stream. We do have this little trough here that is going to potentially produce some isolated severe weather here in the northeast as we go through the rest of today. Again, it should be pretty isolated. It's just a really weak little short wave. And as we continue to go into the next few days, this is tomorrow, you can see this next little short wave starting to move on in with the next larger trough here. And that will continue to push into our Saturday. Some of the same areas that we will be watching tomorrow will potentially see another round of severe weather on our Saturday. And then getting into Sunday, this little short wave will continue to push off into the northern part of the U.S. And then Monday, basically the same story, continuing to stay a bit toasty here in the parts of the west as well as here in the southern plains and the northeast. And that trough will start to move off to the east as we get into Tuesday. And then as we get into our Wednesday, that heat continues to build here in the basically the same areas that we've been dealing with that heat, unfortunately. So here is our look ahead forecast. You can see compared to the areas that we are expecting severe weather tomorrow, we'll once again see severe weather on Saturday. This does include Sioux Falls, South Dakota, but you can also see that as we go into Saturday that the risk does include Minneapolis. As of right now, this is a low-end threat, nothing too crazy, but it's better than nothing. The chances aren't zero here. So if you're in Sioux Falls to Minneapolis, southward into parts of northern Iowa and western Wisconsin, you guys could see some severe weather as we begin our weekend. So we can go forward in time here. That is all I have for you. Make sure that you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, as well as our TikTok page, where we've been trying to create some fun content for you guys. If you have any questions, concerns, if you just want to say hi, you can give us a call at 855-334-4245. You can email us at info@hailtrace.com and check out our website at www.hailtrace.com. And I am meteorologist Heather Kay. I hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday.